Rome, a city of wonder. The city that wasn't built in a day, where all roads supposedly lead. Rome, the city, Rome, the republic, and Rome, the empire. Rome is clearly a lot of things. However, as always, things are more complicated than they appear. Much like your boyfriend when you discover he's cheating on you, or infamous US President Richard Nixon when it's discovered he's trying to sabotage the election, Roman history is full of lies and deception once we look closely enough are easy to see through. While this may sound like an over-exaggeration or a joke at first, I am quite serious and convinced of the flaws of Roman history. The first thing we have to address is that the Romans were pretty crazy and out there. To provide an example, the Roman festival of Lupercalia. To keep this channel having some semblance of being family friendly, I won't go too much into detail, but the festival involved practices including, but not limited to, sacrificing animals and wearing parts of their skin while running out near naked in the streets in a counterclockwise manner and randomly whipping people in your path because supposedly it helps with fertility. So now that we've established that the Romans were pretty crazy and out there, we can begin to address their history. Now, don't get me wrong, Rome was pretty cool and all and provided many wonderful contributions to Western civilization. But as the great Greek philosopher and founder of skepticism, Theodoros stated, we know nothing about reality, where the truth lies in the deep. We have to first evaluate what we know about Rome and how we know it. For this instance, I will focus on the example of the Punic Wars, the example of which I will give credit to a friend of mine, for the privacy I'll keep unnamed, for giving me the idea of covering. Now, Roman history can basically be summarized like this. Rome gets some new politicians. These politicians want to prove themselves and how manly they are. A war breaks out, Rome struggles and overcomes, Rome wins the war and expands. And repeat. Quintus Fabius Pictor and Lucius Cincius Alimentus are the names of two of the Roman fathers of historiography. Cincius and Fabius are both important in their own regards, but we start our story here with them because of their primary characteristics propaganda. See, the Roman idea of history was not necessarily just to display neutral facts as they happened, but also to make Rome and particular people look super good in the process. Hence, Roman historians, many of whom, funnily enough, wrote in Greek, are often more so propagandists than trustworthy good historians, like most historians are today. Because that's right, no historian today would ever be a propagandist, right? We can easily see this in multiple examples throughout the Punic Wars, where modern historians, after adding up the numbers and find that the numbers reported in the battles are pretty extraordinarily wrong in many cases, as well as many other details. For example, it is pretty difficult for some to believe that Rome managed to build over 120 ships in 60 days without having a navy beforehand. Other accounts from historian Livy also mention a giant dragon snake, which one of the Roman generals is easily able to kill, because of course he can. Unfortunately, these are also often the only historical sources we have, since the Romans did something that was pretty terribly clever. They burnt their enemies' books. After three wars with Carthage, a state to Rome's south, including one supposed attempt by the Romans to get Carthage to move their entire city, Rome had finally beaten Carthage, where they then leveled the entire city to the ground. During this process, where Carthage was utterly obliterated, the Romans did destroy Carthaginian records, which seems to be true given we can scarcely find any. However, the ruins of Carthage do still exist today, lying just a bit off from the modern city of Tunis, and you can actually visit them if you're ever in Tunisia. Now, the Punic Wars did happen, and Rome did exist. These are facts that cannot be refuted because we have pretty strong observable evidence for them from what we can see today. What I mean when I say Rome is a lie is that Roman sources are not necessarily to be fully trusted, as they often blow things out of the water to unrealistic proportions with unrealistic details. Rome is often presented as the peak of civilization, and everyone else around them was barbarians. But in reality, that is simply not true, and in fact, Rome was often more barbaric, in my opinion, and brutal than many of their neighbors. Definitely, at least in how expansionist they were. And most of Rome's accomplishments were blatant copies of others, whether it be in their military through their naval technology and army fortifications, or civic with their architecture, or religious affairs with literally taking the Hellenistic religion and copying it. All they did was rename the gods. If I do that in school, I'm accused of plagiarism and being a bad person. When some guy named like Marcus Trumfius Bullius or what have you does it thousands of years ago, he's the backbone of Western civilization. Double standard? I think so! Jokes aside, this brings up a very good point about a common philosophical concept certainty. Objectively speaking, with such a low amount of sources and ones that are clearly biased, we cannot be certain about many things in Roman history. Similarly, we cannot often be certain about a lot of other things, like whether those berries are poisonous, whether this YouTube channel is really that trustworthy. Socrates commanded that we always be willing to ask questions about things, and theorists suggest that we always be skeptical and willing to test things about without just taking them at a glance. In Minecraft, we can't always be certain of what we are doing and what we are looking at. Many people for years tricked unwitting youngsters into believing that Herobrine existed and was out to get them, or that the Aether was in the base game, only for those youngsters to be tragically disappointed by finding out that those things aren't real and greater monsters were. Taxes and despair. Minecraft teaches us to be skeptical by not telling us what to do and refusing to give us certainty. While the game's ability to let you respawn does give it more forgiveness, in Skyblock we find ourselves in a stressful situation where being too reckless and acting on false assumptions could mean we halt all progression permanently. For example, we might believe that some trick allows us to get free diamonds and resources, only to wind up losing our valuable bucket to the void and now finding ourselves in a desperate situation. In conclusion, Rome is a lie, trust nobody, and have a good day.